I'm now going to turn the platform here over to Dr. Charla Long, who's Dean of College of Professional Studies at Lipscomb University. They have launched a very exciting program there, which will serve as our final and most robust example of the way that badges can be used in alternative credentialing. Charla, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today. I've been sitting here saying, that's right, way to say it, that's exactly right. So hopefully the presentation and what we share with you will help reinforce what you just heard from Anne as she's gone through her content. So I get a lot from faculty, so this is just really glorified Boy Scout, Girl Scout world. One of the most frustrating comments, so I decided to really turn it into an advantage of saying, you know, badges really aren't just for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and just like you had a motivation as a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout to acquire more badges, so do we see that in our students and their desire to want their badges to be able to mean something. Love this cartoon. A gentleman goes in to interview for a job and he says, I let my merit badges do the talking. And so we do and see the same thing with our students. They are looking actively for some sort of an outward manifestation of what it is that they can do, and they know, and they realize a transcript has fallen really short in being able to deliver that for them. So our little badge journey I thought I would share briefly with you. Employers are really seeking new solutions. As you know, employers spend about $126 billion every year on training and development. They spend another $20 billion in tuition reimbursement programs, yet only 7% believe that higher education is doing an excellent job in preparing students for the workplace. 84% are saying that our graduates are unprepared, not our as in Lipscomb only, but our graduates are unprepared for the workplace. We also see students with this real gaming mentality. So watch your child on an iPad or go to a restaurant and you can watch people playing their games and they want to earn another level, another level. They want those point bounce. They want their new little certificate that says they've advanced to the next level. We see that mentality coming across in our students and believe badges is one way that we can play to that. And then lastly for us was really our push towards competency-based education and knowing that we were going to have a different platform for delivering and measuring competence. So we created the Core Competency Center here at Lipscomb. Core really just stands for a customized, outcome-based, relevant evaluation. And we believe that will be the kind of the defining factors of who we are in our competency-based arena. These slides go slower than me. I'm sorry about that. So what are competencies? I know you've talked about this, but just let me give you my take on this definition. Competencies in their really simplest of forms. They're the knowledge, the skills, the ability, and the attitude. And we know that every workplace role is just a unique combination or collection of those competencies. And we believe that there are different levels of competence, so it's not a checkbox, yes, I got that competence, or no, I don't, but instead we have varying degrees of competence. And so every role has that unique combination, and our job is to help discover what that is. We know competencies are not new in the work environment. It's something they understand. Competencies drive everything from performance reviews to training and development initiatives to talent and succession plans to identifying who an organization may be looking for from a talent search standpoint, and then really driving that talent capability dashboard. So if a corporate CEO comes in and says, I really want to do this, this is our next vision, our next strategy as an organization, the HR executive is able to say, let me share with you our dashboard. What are the talents, the knowledge and skills, abilities, and attitudes our people actually have? So with that in mind, we really started to build upon this level of mastery and saying that we all know people that are okay public presenters, let's say, for example, and those that are amazing. They both have oral presentation skills, but at varying levels of mastery. And so we want to be able to recognize those different levels of mastery. Instead, what we would see on a traditional transcript is a student would say they have oral communication class and they got a certain grade, but that doesn't tell me if they're a really superb presenter or just an okay presenter. And so we wanted to figure out how to build that out in a more substantive way. So what I'm sharing here is kind of a description of our competency profile and how we award, and it looks like when it switched, the PowerPoint switched into this format that our font sizes got messed up just a little bit there, so I apologize for that. But we see that there are really 4 levels of proficiency. Those 4 levels give rise to 4 different badge levels as well. So the first one being an individual contributor. This is something that we would expect maybe from a high school grad. So as we begin to think about laying badges into the K through 12 world, this is where we might be looking at that high school graduate being able to have that fundamental level of knowledge, skills, abilities, attitudes. A level 2 is your frontline supervisor, somebody in that initial management role. And in this case, we tend to think of that as one of our undergraduate students at graduation, depending on where they're at and what their major field of study is. A level 3 is somebody who's a manager of managers. It tends to be in our graduate program level of mastery, but it could be in certain undergraduate programs as well that we would require a level 3 mastery. And then a level 4 is really that C-suite kind of individual. So if you think about executive education that you do, this is the level of mastery that we're looking for from that individual. So we actually started by saying we'd like to, instead of designing our own competency model, use one that's used by industry. We licensed the Polaris model, and it had basically 41 key competencies cut across 7 main categories. So you can kind of see here the 7 different categories. They each have a different look and feel, and as a result, that kind of gave rise to the initial platform, the badging platform that we use today. So the 7 categories each have their own, and then we can build out and expand upon these competencies based on what we might specifically need for a corporate partner through a negotiated process. So if you look here, this is a sample badge that we use for in the communications competency area, this one for active listening. And you'll see on the badge we indicate what the category is, here being communications. We also identify what is that specific competency, here being active listening. And we indicate with that little 01 what level of achievement that person has earned. So just like Ann was talking about, this badge has all the metadata behind it, and it can be embedded. Somebody can click on this badge and actually pull up the behaviors that you can anticipate an individual with this badge being able to demonstrate on a consistent basis. You can also find out who awarded it, what was the tool that they used to award it, what date was it awarded, etc. Next slide is coming. So what we did was take all 41 of those badges at the 4 different levels of build-out, so it's about 164 different badges, and say that this is our ecosystem. And from here, you can literally pick and choose which badges, which category, which competency level of mastery for any particular role or program that you're trying to design. So if I have a corporation that wants to work with us because they've got a workforce shortage, we can literally do a competency card sort with them to determine what are the competencies you need. Then we're picking and choosing from different programs and different badge modules that we have, specifically what they need for that particular program. all of it's pretty data-driven. The Polaris model has been in use for about 40 years in the U.S. There's lots of data about where various Fortune 100 companies have implemented it, so what were the magic combinations they needed for a particular role. So we use all of that data plus our own custom card sorts that we do with employers or with industry to be able to drive what does a customization look like. But without the badging platform, that ecosystem, it'd be starting from scratch every time. This enables us to be able to build on some sort of a platform or an ecosystem. And I put on here, it's the science and there's art. There's a lot of data that drives our decision, but there's also a little give and take in that in trying to figure out what works best as well. So all of those pieces really come into play. Trying to forward my slides. Sorry about that. The second area about the badging ecosystem is that it really does empower learners. I thought Ann did a great job of laying out all the different ways from latticing to stackable to the different, to modularizing to embedding industry. I'd like to say we do a lot of those different elements here. That's exactly what the system was designed to be doing. They don't have to be a degree seeker to begin into the badging ecosystem. So, for example, we're working with a state agency here to put a number of their employees through a badge and let them earn a badge. Well, then on my back side of the house of that is to figure out how many of those individuals actually have a post-secondary credential. Where can I work with them to be able to move that first badge purchase into a second badge purchase and into a third so that they can begin to build their competence and to move towards the kind of degree that Ann mentioned that we have a real shortage of in the U.S. today. So they can purchase one module at a time, one badge at a time, see its usefulness, determine whether or not they want more, and then I've got a team of people who are actively working those kind of badge takers and trying to really foster them into becoming a student over a longer period of time. So there's really 164 different badges that are offered, and badge value kind of varies according, if you wanted to put it in credit speak, it really values according to what the badge is in particular. So that's pretty much kind of how our ecosystem works at this moment. Whoops, I went a little too fast there. We provide for every, it's going back, maybe it's going backwards. Hang on a second. There we go. So we provide every student with a physical competency report that gives their badges. So you can actually see this one here for an individual who got, for example, one of their leadership ones is in change mastery. So this person can be counted on to see teams of people as change agents, to understand that the leadership responsibility has a responsibility in publicly supporting change, that we need to skillfully manage the human side of change, and that they can employ basic change techniques. So this is actually an individual's report that I just snagged an image of, but you can see some of the badges that they earned. This is generated anytime somebody calls and they want a transcript. If they've been a student in our competency-based program or have earned a badge, they'll actually receive a report similar to this that goes out with that transcript so that they can really identify what are the behaviors I can count on for this individual who I'm seeing as a student. So I do see questions coming in, and Ann, I'm assuming, because I had just a few minutes to give an overview of what we do, I see some questions, and I'd like to take those if that's okay. Tell us about how extensively and how well employers have picked up on the badges. Well, I actually, Lipscomb has, from an undergraduate student population, just under 3,000 students, and I have an employer who I'm going to negotiating with right now to put 9,700 people through badging sequences here. So you can imagine the impact that can have on the academic institution. Employers get it. They love it. They really do like the idea of these discrete credentials. And so I would say that's been incredibly helpful. Any lessons from their experience about what works and might not work so well? We have both what we call context data. So I was saying about the contextual competencies, that's really the only badge that is context specific. So the rest of them are pretty generally applied to any major program, and I would say that's been incredibly helpful in more quickly responding to requests to customize. So I would say that might be beneficial. Is the sound any better?
Yep, coming through very good, loud and clear.
What other kinds of questions I'm looking down here for? What was your effort to persuade your faculty in order to do this? Is that, I think, the question that was asked by Stephanie. And I would say it was quite a process in order to get faculty engaged. And one way that we did that was by at least initially saying that this is really content targeting that 85% of the student population that are adult learners versus targeting in students that already are kind of in the traditional realm. And so we kind of separated some of that out in order to gain acceptance here on campus. So hopefully that clarifies that. Someone asked how long it took us. We actually bought the competency model in 2007, but did not begin to implement that model until closer, well, about 3 years ago, I guess. We started spending pretty significant time, and about 18 months ago really did all the badging framework, all the art behind it, secured the intellectual property rights on those various badges. So that's about how long that has taken us to get to this place in the process. And I think every school has a little bit different journey, but it's been great to have an ecosystem in place so that we can use that to begin to do additional build-outs. Other questions?
And as Charla, I was trying to compile some things earlier, but I didn't hear you if you had addressed Caitlin's question.
And Caitlin, are badges earned only by online courses or is an element? So I appreciate, Caitlin, that question because all of ours have a pretty robust coaching environment. I'm glad you asked that because we did something a little bit different where we didn't want our badges to be self-taught. And so instead, we really are trying to guarantee that an individual will increase in competence when they take a badge, because that's the reason they're doing is they need to improve their oral communication skills, for example. And so we put all of our faculty that serve as coaches in these competency models on a pay-for-performance system. So faculty are actually incentivized to hang in there, keep working with a student, find the right tools in our toolbox of development opportunities, and really move a student's level of performance from a level 1 to a 3 or from a 2 to a 3, whatever that is. And then any student, when they're ready to, they believe they've mastered the behaviors that are identified by that badge, they actually go to our Behavioral Assessment Center to be reassessed. So we don't tie we break apart assessment and coaching, and then if that assessment team believes they have in fact demonstrated the behaviors that they need in order to earn that badge, then the faculty can be compensated at the additional amount for that. Somebody asked if our faculty is unionized. The answer is no, and we'll hope that this won't give rise to a unionized movement amongst our faculty. But a lot of our faculty can earn almost double their compensation by teaching in this competency-based badging system. And a lot of them are really enjoying the depth of relationship with students and being able to work with them to really develop the competencies that they need. Hopefully that answered Caitlin's question.
Thank you, Charla. You have given us so much great information, and it's very exciting to hear about a post-secondary institution actually well along the path to adopting badges, and actually not just thinking about them, but actively issuing badges to students, not just to faculty for faculty development. Very exciting stuff. Thank you so much.